Hello and welcome to the podcast for Real Life Heroines with Susanna Liller. Join us bi-weekly as alongside of you, we work toward answering the call, knowing that stepping into our destiny always involves going into the unknown and exploring new landscapes. This show talks about those new landscapes, what it took to get there, and the real challenges that take place for most of us along the journey. Heroines don't stay in their comfort zone. They follow their inner guidance to grow and evolve. From the School for Real Life Heroines, your host, Susanna Liller.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast for Real Life Heroines, where I get to interview real life heroines like Blanca Vergara, who is going to speak with me today, and talk to them about how they chose to answer their calling to live a life greater, bigger, more meaningful than previously. And of course, we answer calls many times in our lives. And you will see Blanca has done that for sure. We've known each other for 15 years. Blanca, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here. Very happy to see you, my heroine, and everybody listening.
Yes, well, we're very happy to have you here. And let me just say that you are in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and you were telling me it's hot. Yeah. And I know the whole world has been going through different stages of, as we know, temperature ups and downs. So, yes. So, one thing I never asked you when we together went to Hudson, the coaching school that we went to in Santa Barbara, California. How did you get to Amsterdam?
Well, there are two stories. The official story is that I was a very good student in academia, and in corporate, I was the smartest girl. And they gave me oh my God, now I think in Dutch. They gave me scholarship to go and study my MBA wherever I wanted. So I came to Rotterdam. But the real story, the other one, the one that the heroines went to hear, is that secretly I was escaping my mother.
Yes. Well, we want to hear that story. So let me just back that up with a little bit about you. And we know that you have 2 MBAs. You were very much a high-tech executive. You got that MBA and then you got one in science, a master's in science in IT, and you were an IT executive. And so big time corporate person, which I think is who you were transitioning out of when I first met you 15 years ago. And then you started a coaching company for executives and leaders called The Looking Glass. And you then helped them, and you were helping them do what you were in the process of doing, or you had just done, detaching from their executive persona and being who they really are, their authentic selves. So lots of speaking, major companies helping them, and still do this. But you have, what I've recognized, in particular talking with you, Blanca, is you've integrated a lot of spirituality, particularly Toltec spirituality, into what you're doing. And it's so interesting, as I said before we got on the call, your website right now, which is blancavergara.com, and we'll have all that information in the show notes, but it says, stop being 2 selves, integrate your spiritual self and your professional self. Is that what it says?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now more than ever, we are realizing, all humans, that we are kind of several selves, even more than two. We are the one who wants to be Peter Pan and forever young, the one who wants to be the executive and have the big job and expensive car, the one that the women to the top, the one who wants to be a seductress. And we divide all different parts of ourselves, and these parts of ourselves end up in a war, and they just pull us to all different directions. Before we were talking, I was saying how much I am angry about how female empowerment is happening these days, that is asking us to become something that we are not, to become really masculine. And of course, we have masculine energy, but we are forgetting how good is to be a woman. Yeah. So this has been playing for me all these years. This wanting to be what the world wanted me to be, assuming that I understood what they wanted me to be, never listening to what my soul was asking.
Right. Which is the heroine's journey over and over again, because the heroine's journey, if you answer your inner calls, moves you closer and closer to your own authenticity. So let me ask you, and you know, you have talked to me about, when we talked about your major leaps, and you talked about a childhood which was very dysfunctional, and then proving yourself in your young adulthood, and then healing from that. And now you're really yourself working to live consciously, but also help others do the same thing. Talk to us about your first major calling, where you really felt you were leaping off a cliff and leaving your comfort zone. What was that for you?
I think indeed the one that you already mentioned was the you know, my mother was very controlling. Now I know that my mother had schizophrenia. So it was a very specific case. Not all the mothers are schizophrenic, but my mother was really worried about control, and I was a parentified child. I was taking care of her a lot. So in her world, it was very dangerous that I will leave. So life really called me to leave. So first I left to the university, to the corporate world. And the ultimate leaving was to leave to Europe. And that was a huge decision. That was a huge decision because indeed it was to say goodbye to Mexico. It was to say goodbye to the boyfriend that I had at that moment, to the language, to the culture, I wanted to stay away from her. Everything else that I loved, I also had to say goodbye to. And this is tremendous, because this is something that we all go through when we're answering the call at some point in our life. Right. Every time that we make a choice, we have to let go of the old self. We have to purposely burn your old self. And it's painful. It's painful. When I came here to the Netherlands, the first week was horrible because I couldn't hug anybody. I didn't know anybody. And Mexico is very huggy, kissy. I couldn't tell jokes. People wouldn't understand my English. Of course, Dutch. I couldn't speak Dutch at the time. Yeah. And I came in summer, so the first winter in the Netherlands, that was serious, -10 degrees. That was a shock for the system. I was so ill. And at the same time, I was in business school full-time, studying in English, writing papers. And it was really like, I want to go home.
Hard. It was hard. Very hard.
I went, what did I do with my life? What am I doing here?
Right.
And it was this, okay, what do you want? What is what you are made of? And keep going. You're not going to just stop right now. That was a big leap, one of the biggest leaps of my life.
Definitely. So what sustained you then? And through all of that, through it being very difficult, because there are people listening now that are contemplating some big leap. And we know how much fear comes to the fore when you're at that threshold. So you kept going, did very well, we know. What helped? What really helped you?
Absolutely. Well, what you are doing, what I'm doing is what helps women.
Yeah.
Women. That's at the time was two German ladies, the classmates, who really helped me, who accompanied me, became my friends, invited me for Christmas, and I started to find my way. And when spring came also in my soul. Okay, I can do this, and I can continue here. And
Right.
but really, I could say that this is consistent. Every single time that I have crossed the threshold, being with women is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course, I feel the same way. And the two of us in our work surround ourselves with women. Can you, maybe this is a good time for you to talk about the special seminar and program you put on last year, which I was very honored to be a part of. And it was based on the sacred feminine. And what caused you, what was the call to say more and invite people to talk about the sacred feminine and maybe say what that is to you?
Absolutely. Well, that jump to go to to come to the Netherlands, that was, to stay in the system. And little by little, the system really spit me off. And I really wanted to be a mother, but I was 39. And guess what happened to me? I lost the baby.
Oh, right.
And I was feeling guilty, and it was my fault. And that's the reason why I brought her here. She is the Coatlicue. She is the representation of the divine feminine. And this is a copy, of course, but in my shame, in my guilt, I had the blessing of going to Mexico that time. And I went to see the real one that is about 2 meters tall and really like tons. And I just cried in front of her, and she healed me. It was, when I tell you, I still feel the emotion. I feel more the emotion about the healing than of the miscarriage itself. And it was how I met her. This healing, this taking away all my shame, of my guilt, or my pain, or my loss. And guess what? I got pregnant like that. And now the baby is a 12 years old boy who, runs around. And that was 12 years ago. And that started a journey of understanding how the divine feminine lives in me and what that is. Because it's not just to have long hair, or not, it's not just to have your period, or not to have a womb, or be a mother, but it's something more profound. It's something that is about cooperation, something that's about community, is something about listening, something about being magnetic, not passive, because passive sounds like you do nothing. But the two big elements of the feminine are earth and water. And what happens with earth and water? You have fertility, you have plants. What is passive about that? It's just that we don't notice, we don't pay attention that plants move, and that plants change, and plants are talking to you. And that's just a representation of the divine feminine. And this I have been introducing to my life, and it got really exaggerated when I had a daughter. So I got even more passionate about the divine feminine when I became a mother of a daughter, a mother of a woman, a mother of a potential mother. So I said to myself, the catapult was that my mother passed. Right. My mother passed, and I went to clean her house, as you do when your parents pass, and I found poetry. Mm-hmm. I found songs, all these things that she never published. I found her dresses and her jewelry and her, and it was very painful, as you may imagine, that I ran away from her. I hated her, and at the same time, I loved her and I miss her, and I consider all her pain. And so this contradiction with the fact that she died, the guilt, the shame, it brought me even closer, because what the divine feminine does for you, for me, for all women, is to hold us in the moment when we are the most disgusting to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So at that moment, I was disgusted with myself because my mother died and I did not save her, or I did not love her as you are supposed to do. That accelerated my quest to learn more about the divine feminine. And I started to read more books. And here in the Netherlands, and we put the link of them, there is an institution called the Embassy of the Free Mind. And in the Embassy of the Free Mind, there was a conference about the divine feminine. So I went to follow this conference, and it was everything about a book that a lady wrote 20 years, took 20 years to talk about that. And I went to this conference and we went deeper into the divine feminine. And I remember everything that I learned as a Toltec in my house. I was raised as a Toltec. So as you do, I decided to create a conference, and I called this lady and I said, "Can I interview you, pretty please? You are my heroine." And she said, "Yes." She said, "Yes." This woman is called Anne Baring, and her book, I have it here, is called The Dream of the Cosmos, A Quest for the Soul. And she talks about how these feminine qualities, because it's not women, but it's the feminine qualities that we have as humanity, right, are awakening in all of us and are to change the future of humanity. Yeah. And it was so exciting, because suddenly, when she said yes, I look around and I said, who of my friends are working on this? And I'm like, obviously, Susanna. You had already published your book of the Heroine's Journey, and that you also said yes to me.
Yeah, no question. Of course, I said yes. Right.
So it turned out to be this amazing conference that I feel so humble. I did nothing. I held the space for you ladies. It was so powerful. We talk about Demeter, we talk about the heroine's journey, we talk about Lilith, we talk about different cultures and different perspectives of the feminine. Mm-hmm. And I'm all for doing it again next year. Yeah. We leave the URL as well, is the Wounds to Win Summit. It's absolutely available for free for everybody. Because it's important. I perceive that we are getting so many confusing messages right now because we have lost the connection with the real sacred. Mm-hmm. However, the real sacred is everywhere. The real sacred is in the plants. It is in the clouds. It's in the river. We can reconnect with that just by even breathing. Right. So,
you know, there was a time thousands and thousands of years ago that women, the feminine, was so revered, particularly women, because they could give birth and they bled and they didn't die. And it was such a different way of considering femininity. And at the point you make is so good, that all of us have the feminine and the masculine within us, but we have certainly been much more, the masculine is about more driving and achieving and competitive and winning, and this lighter, gentler, but still very strong piece of us, we need to bring it out. And I think the more we talk to each other about it, the more it does come out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This summer I went to Spain, and it was really amazing. I was very close to the caves of Altamira. Altamira is one of the caves where they discover ancient paintings. And there in the museum, I found this book. I'm going to recommend it to you guys. And I'll invite this speaker. It's an Austrian lady. Is called the Chalice and the Sword. I think in English they say another word for sword, or the dagger.
Chalice, is it the chalice and the blade?
The Chalice and the Blade.
Yes, yes.
And she answered to me a question that I had for a long time. So we have the power of the men. So what is the alternative? This is what we say in the street, that is the power of the woman. No, that's wrong. That's just the same thing. It's domination of somebody above somebody else. And she puts it really very clearly in the book. The opposite of domination is cooperation. And she goes into detail how the anthropologist Maria Gambutas found the communities, the cities that really in 3D express the feminine. The masculine is expressing fortress and castles and defense. The feminine is expressing villages in valleys, close to the water, with paintings, with music, with plants, with flowers. That is cooperation, creativity, health.
Definitely creativity. It's interesting. I remember I was part of the generation of women that went into the workforce and wanted to achieve and get to the top. And, you talked about you had the same phase in your life. And it's so true what you were saying. So that the things that I wore as I went to my corporate job was the suit and I wanted, and it was all the same masculine kind of, this is how you succeed. And the masculine success ladder is not the feminine or our necessarily what we would want as the success ladder. And that's a different vision of it. And so many women, I think they're not successful or they're not empowered because they're not doing what the men are doing, but we're not supposed to be necessarily doing. I mean, and some do, and it's great. And we need those women doing what they're doing too. I mean, none of this is meant to be judgmental. It's just there's many ways to bring about who we are and how we are successful. And
the metaphor that I'm using lately is to curate your life. Curate your life. You see, the painting I have behind is something I painted myself. It's not completely white. It's not completely gold. It's not completely anything. It's a combination of things. And the same is with our lives. Sometimes we need to be authoritative. Sometimes we need to say no. Sometimes we need to fight. And we need to be the lioness to defend whatever it is, our contract or our child. And that is reasonable and a good idea. Sometimes we need to negotiate for money. That's really fine. But sometimes we need to give a hug. Sometimes we need to allow ourselves to have an orgasm. Sometimes we need to cook. Let us rediscover that part that we just have thrown away. Oh, the woman of the 50s and her cake.
Oh my gosh.
Hell, how expensive it is to pay cancer or dementia that is totally correlated with bad diet.
Yep, I agree. I agree. And this reminds me of what you said to me, this conscious living when we talked, and you talked about your mother dying, and you said, your mother doesn't have to die in order for you to start living. In other words, your mother dying was a big wake-up call for you. And the wake-up calls are what get us out of the comfort zone and onto our heroine's journey. Yeah, so say more about that. You don't have to, your mother doesn't have to die, or you don't have to have some big thing happen to you for you to live a conscious life.
Absolutely. One of the answers to my calling, nothing happened. That was when I left the corporate world. It was not that I had an argument, or I got cancer, or I had a car crash. No, it was a Sunday when I woke up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, how can I explain this to myself? Mm-hmm. Can I continue living this way for the rest of my life? At that time I was getting drunk every weekend. I had one night stands. I didn't have friends. I had people who went with me because I was the boss. I couldn't buy myself another more expensive suit or another bottle of champagne. What was the meaning of that?
Yeah.
And I didn't have, nobody died. There was no illness. There was a moment of asking the question, how long can I live not having meaning in my life? And that was it, It was a Sunday by myself thinking that. And seriously, the way it happened was I prayed to God. I have no idea how to solve this. God, please help me.
Yeah.
And it was, it was miraculous. Maybe I tell you a story that I went to a retreat, a Catholic retreat. I have been in so many in many kinds of retreats, and I wanted a boyfriend. So I was dieting and I was buying myself beautiful dresses, and I was going to the right parties. And I was telling that to the priest, and the priest tells me, so do you believe in God or you don't? What are you talking about? And that I will never forget, because when you believe really in the force of the universe, or the divine feminine, or Jesus Christ, or however you call God, your life is transformed really easily in an effortless way. And for me, it's also that's the divine feminine. We fight the material. We need to reincorporate the spiritual. We need to reincorporate the definition of God. And for that, I called my son, the 12 years old. I was trying to explain to him what divine was, and I was using complicated words. And he said very intelligently, I got it. Divine, that's me.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's funny, you would say that for you, it didn't happen as a big thing or anything. You just looked in the mirror and you made, to me, it's you made the space for God to come in. And again, however anybody talks about God, the universe, your higher self, whatever, for me, it was a similar kind of thing. I was in my kitchen and I had been reading and doing retreats too, and it was a while ago. And I got the understanding that God is in here, just like your son, in me. It's me. And, everything since has just verified that more and more for me. So when we connect, we're connecting the God in me to the God in you, and to those women that we work with and men, and it just enhances it greatly for the world. The world will feel that, and it will help to heal the world, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just imagine the divine feminine is fertility. Fertility. What is fertility? Is food. It is we if there was not a divine feminine, if there was no mother, there was not you, there was not me. It is life.
Yeah. Right.
It is life. And if we see it that way, what is there more sacred than that?
Yeah.
And for a while, I have been fascinated on the subject of trauma. And I got myself really into that because I discovered my own childhood trauma. And the more I researched, the more I studied, the more I read, I felt, I concluded that is the human condition. And the only way of healing is to practice devotion to what is, devotion to acceptance, to love, to compassion, to gratitude. And it's really like a practice, like breathing in and breathing out, like drinking water, drinking more water than wine or than coffee, eating more a carrot than a hamburger. That you sometimes can have a candy in your thoughts, but you go back to your practice. You go back to gratitude. You go back to patience. You go back to it has to be a persistence,
Consistency.
Yeah, patient practice, and a sense of stubbornness. No matter how heavy the traffic jam is, or the teenager said no, or your husband left the socks in the wrong place.
Right. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
I think too, I would say noticing. And I think the more you work on bringing out the sacred feminine in yourself, that creativity, that fertility, so then it makes you realize we're all connected, and we're connected with the planet. And so then you're noticing more the hummingbird and the flower. And that there's a woman who came to my Heroines gathering last Wednesday, and she wrote afterward, she said, and it was women sharing their stories, just like you, and I have graciously agreed to do this with me today. And so it's so inspiring just to hear everybody talk what they're doing and leaping, and and she said, I went outside and I just really looked at this tree right outside the door of the place where we had been meeting, and it was like I was looking at it for the first time. I think everything, I don't know, gets brighter, or we just notice better if we practice. Yeah, bringing this
Absolutely.
out. Yeah.
And the more you practice, the more it becomes. During the lockdowns, my husband did the homeschooling, and my son grew really attached to him. And you have heard about the love languages.
Yes, though I haven't gotten the book. I've ordered the book. It hasn't arrived yet. Yes.
Their love language of my husband and my son is joking, kidding, tickling. The love language of my daughter and me is hugging. So my daughter and I, no problem. But he wanted to tickle me, and I just didn't want. I wanted to hug, and he was really close to his dad, and he was learning to joke more, and the distance started growing and growing and growing. And what I did this summer is well, first I noticed, but second, I really started talking to him in his love language. I just started joking and kidding and tickling, and one morning, somebody jumps on my bed and hugs me, and I think, oh, it's my daughter. So I turn, and it was him.
Yeah.
And for me, this is a miracle, because you cannot make the horses drink.
Yeah.
But at least you can drink.
Right.
And as we cannot change the entire world and make corporations and governments do what we think should be done, we can control what we can control.
Right.
And kindness, persistence, listening, wherever you are. I have in my coaching group, I have a woman who works in the military. And she was thinking, my God, we talk about all these spiritual things with you, Blanca, and I'm working in the military. How am I going to do that there? And my God, her team, the women, they come to her office to cry their sufferings.
Yeah.
And that's what she does.
Right. Right.
Help them, hold the space for them.
Mhm.
So really, I put this extreme example so that everybody who's listening doesn't feel alone or excluded. You don't need to be a coach, or you don't need to be a therapist. You can be a mom, or you can be a director in a company that, I don't know, does oil production in a very horrible way. You can still bring the divine feminine in your context.
Right. Right. And going back to you and your son and what you were saying, I think too that we tend to, as humans, there's this whole judgment thing, and we think, oh, they're not acting the way I want them to be acting, and getting all involved in that way, and your emotions, and really it's what you did. You just work on yourself. Okay, I'm going to do more like the way my son wants it, and it's not about changing him. As you said, you can't bring a horse to water if he doesn't want to drink, or however that goes. So yeah, it's work, doing the work ourselves.
Yeah. But it works all the time.
Yeah.
It works all the time. I see it all the time. With my daughter, it's just so clear. She starts misbehaving. My first reaction is like, and then this is a mirror. That's about me.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a mirror. This is about me. What am I not seeing? What am I ignoring? Pay attention. What is the subject?
Yeah.
And usually, I think with daughters that happens really direct, daughters and mothers,
Yes.
that when that's interesting, thinking very Christian. Now that's my Christian education. A sin is to not love yourself. That is what that sin is. I really like it. It's not love the Holy Spirit, not the Holy Spirit within you, not honoring your divinity.
Right. Agree.
Every time, 100%. When I do that, when I sin, my daughter misbehaves. So now I know that she's my early warning system. Oh, she's misbehaving. Oh, okay. I honor my divinity.
That's right. And it's interesting how we can forget to do that so easily. I'm speaking for myself, but there's so many women, we echo each other as we forget, and then we remember, and we go, oh yeah, you're supposed to put the oxygen on yourself first. And when we talked way at the beginning about all the different parts of ourselves, loving the little girl that you were, even though you thought you looked funny when you were little, and loving the girl or the woman that you were with your first husband. Speaking about myself, why did I ever end up with somebody like that? But all of those selves, loving them. We were doing the best we could with what we knew, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, that's just so incredible that you mentioned that, because I think I did not tell you. I have a gift for your audience that is precisely that.
Really?
I created I'll tell you the genesis. I went to a retreat, and I had a vision of all my selves. And I created a vision of how I integrated them with the divine feminine on how I was able to end my inner war.
Hmm.
So that was something that was inspired, and I put it in a recording for you. I said open for online, blancavergara.com/meditation.
Wonderful.
And the consequence of that is, it sounds so easy and sometimes cheesy, inner peace, but it is huge, because whenever you have that war of you young woman with the first husband, you were so stupid, or you little child, you're crying there, shut up, we never want to listen to the crying child, then the more we try to quiet those feelings, the louder they come.
Yeah.
And they sabotage you in the moments when you don't want to, when you have the argument with the husband, when you're having the salary negotiation at work. And it's better to deal with them than to try to attempt to repress them.
Right, because she's still there. That inner you is still with you. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of work with Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and getting that creativity engine going, and some way to express that. It's very important. And so that's very exciting that you have a meditation, and we will talk, and I will get that information from you and make sure we put it in the notes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Blanca, sadly, that we need to, I know we have to start talking about where closing down and saying goodbye, but I want you to please think about the women out there listening and who have been getting so much from this conversation with you and your wisdom. And what do you want to make sure they hear, that they don't forget of all of that? What do you want to give them what's the message?
Two things come to mind. Maybe it's one. I really want to impress to them that they are divine.
Yes.
You are divine.
Right.
And we live in a very transactional world in which you go from A to B, and A to B presupposes that B is better than A. But is that true? Mm-hmm. We were born and we're going to die, so what's the sense of it? No. The sense of it is precisely the journey. The sense of it is the adventure. Think like going on holiday. You are home, you go on holiday, and you come back home. So why go on holiday in the first place? Imagine you're a soul, divine, somewhere in the stars. You came to Earth for this wonderful experience that's life. Make the most out of it. Mm-hmm. Take risks that you are scared of taking. Release the old wood, burn the old self that doesn't help you anymore. Mm-hmm. Release what is no longer helping you, serving you, honoring your divinity, and move, constantly renew yourself. It is very important. This goes a little bit in contradiction with the subject that you are enough. Sure, you are enough. Yeah, fundamentally you are a soul, but you are in a journey, and you're in a journey of expansion. So expand. Get in the best shape that you could ever gotten. Write the book, start that business, marry that guy or divorce that guy. Go in the journey of expansion of what your soul is asking you to do. Honor your divinity. This is what I want to tell you.
Wow, that's pretty wonderful. And right now I know there's someone listening to this saying, no, it can't be. But I guess what we're both saying, we both came to it in different ways. I'm thinking, here's Blanca, MBA, previously very successful corporate IT person, scientific leanings, and here she is telling us the divine is in you and honor that divinity. And yeah, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we go with that instead of everything else the world throws at us? So I think it's so great that you came on to speak with me and to say that out loud, and that we're both affirming, yeah, that's the way to go. And we're not talking religion necessarily, right? That doesn't mean going to church. It's if that universal spirit is within us, it's honoring that. However, maybe it's by walking in the woods or meditating or drawing a painting, that beautiful painting that's behind you that you did. There's many ways to worship the divine within. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the creation.
Yeah.
The womb.
So I love where this conversation went. Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you for knowing me for so long and that we're still connected and on a very similar path. I'm going to tell them about blancavergara.com, your website. There's so much information there. Anything else that you want to be sure? Of course, you're on social media, so they'll find everything about you when they visit.
But a delight to connect with your following, with all your heroines. You're doing such great work. I love how, with you, I really feel this sisterhood and this cooperation, and this is just growing, and more women are singing the same song, and this is what we want.
Right. Definitely.
Really exciting.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Are you kidding? Thank you. It's just wonderful to see you. And I will put all this, including your meditation, in our show notes, and everyone will get to know you better. And someday you'll come to the United States and we'll do something in person. Okay, Blanca, I hope you get cooler in your weather.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
You've been listening to the podcast for Real Life Heroines with Susanna Liller. Thank you for joining us. If you would like to connect with Susanna outside of the show, please do. You can email susanna@susannaliller.com and visit the website at susannaliller.com. Let's get social. Instagram @Susanna Liller, Facebook Susanna Liller, author, speaker, and coach. Don't forget to subscribe to the show for easy access to our next episode. And a like and review would be very helpful. Until next time, remember to follow your inner guidance to grow and evolve.